Approximately 125 synagogues and Jewish schools were under terrorist threat yesterday, all across Canada. Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. I hope you're having a great day. Early yesterday morning at approximately 5 a.m., 125 synagogues and Jewish schools all across Canada received an email bomb threat. The email stated that bombs were placed in their facilities and they would be detonated within a few hours. This resulted in the evacuation of several facilities. However, no bombs were actually located. Let's take a look at a CTV report on this incident.
Police surveyed the Beth Israel Beth Aaron Synagogue in Côte St. Luc after it and 100 other Jewish institutions were the subjects of an emailed bomb threat. Rabbi Ruben Pupko received the message early this morning.
One reaction was not again. We've received threats in the past.
The email was sent just after 5 a.m. with death threats and claiming bombs were in backpacks. The message gave no reason why these specific houses of worship were targeted. At the Adath Israel Synagogue in Hampstead, public security checked the building. It was evacuated during morning prayers and 15 worshippers were forced out. The daycare in the building remained open. So far, police say they found no evidence of explosives.
The goal is again, I think, to spread fear. The goal is to terrorize, through your keyboard.
Pupko says this is just the latest incident after anti-Semitic graffiti and Jewish schools were shot at.
Our institutions have been targeted here in Montreal.
The synagogues are staying open, but leaders did get phone calls and messages from community members wondering what is going on. Henry Topaz is with B'nai B'rith Canada.
Can you tell me why I get calls from Israel saying, "Are you safe in Montreal? Is it a good place to be?"
B'nai B'rith is pushing for armed security at Jewish institutions. Many of the targeted synagogues already have cameras, but security measures don't always mean peace of mind.
This is essentially terrorism, psychological terrorism, that has been fomented.
Any member of the Jewish community is a veteran of hostility, and that's a very sad truth.
While Montreal police were looking into the security of the buildings, the investigation is now in the hands of the RCMP. Kelly Gregg, CTV News.
As you can see, a rabbi at one of the synagogues is used to getting these threats, and he's seen an uptick in these threats since October the 7th. And apparently news of these threats have made their way to Israel. He's received inquiries from people in Israel asking if Montreal is indeed a safe place. I've done a few other videos on anti-Semitic attacks in Canada since October the 7th, and I encourage you to look those videos up. I'll provide a link to them in the description below. I mentioned in those videos that if something wasn't done to stop these attacks, to put the perpetrators behind bars, that they would not only continue, but possibly escalate. And I still believe that. Let's take a look at the email that was reportedly sent to the synagogues and the schools.
I quote, "We placed many explosives inside your building," the email warned. "The bombs are set to go off in a few hours. You will all end up in a pool of blood. None of you deserve to keep living." The message ends with a disturbing claim. The group named Court is behind this massacre. We won't stop causing terror.
When I read this, I get the impression that this is a sick hoax. That's not to say that we shouldn't be wary of escalation and actual attacks, and I'll discuss that later in this video. First, let's start with the wording. The author started his email off by saying hi. That's an odd salutation for a threatening email. The writer then goes on to be specific about how he planted the devices within the synagogues and the schools and how that they could be easily located. If the author of this email was serious about causing damage or death, he wouldn't have sent the email, or at least he wouldn't have been as specific about how to find the devices. He would leave the occupants and the police in the dark about what they were looking for. Next, the author identified his group as Court. I went to a database provided by the Canadian government, and Court is not listed as a known terrorist organization, by the Canadian government. I then queried the RCMP National and C Division websites, their newsroom, which provides all of the news releases. C Division is Quebec. On neither the national nor the Quebec website were any news releases regarding this incident. That could mean one of two things. Either they haven't released it yet because they're still in official translation, or they're just not going to release anything. And that could be because they think that this is a hoax. I then went to the Montreal police website and found that they probably have a vacancy in their media liaison because there hasn't been a news release posted since November of 2023, or at least none that I could find. So at the time I'm recording this, there's no official release on this incident. So again, I read this as a sick high school hoax. I've come to that conclusion by the way it is written, the fact that it was sent to so many places, the lack of press releases by official agencies, and how specific he was in how he delivered the devices. I believe the author just wanted to get a reaction from the public and wanted to see news reports. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't take this seriously, and here's why. First, there's a possibility that this was an intelligence gathering operation by this alleged terrorist organization named Court. Organizations can gain intelligence about how the police and occupants may react when faced with a threat, and they can use that when they escalate to an actual attack. Now, I don't think that's the case here, but it is a possibility. Second, if the author gets away with this, it's quite possible that he or she will escalate because he won't just be satisfied in the future with causing the evacuation of a building. Third, if there is an emerging terrorist group called Court, they may be building up to something, and this may be a prelude to that. Not only could they be gathering intelligence as stated before, but they may also be trying to desensitize targets. It's like the old story, The Boy Who Cried Wolf. They do it enough and people become desensitized. They start not to take the threat seriously, and then they can attack. And finally, these actions in today's environment may encourage others to do the same and actually escalate into real violence. As you know, over the last 9 years, Canada has opened its doors to mass migration of unvetted immigrants, many of whom are from places in the world who do not share values that Canadians hold dear. While many immigrants, such as my wife, move to this country in order to assimilate into the culture, and they accept the new culture of Canada, there are also many who come here but don't want to assimilate. They have no intention of assimilating. They're bringing their old culture and their old country with them. And because of that, they act considerably different than a traditional Canadian may. For example, maybe public defecation is an accepted practice where they come from. More often than not, when extreme levels of immigration happen from a certain area of the world, the immigrants bring with them their biases, their hatreds, their feuds, their fights, and they continue those feuds and fights in Canada. This is totally unacceptable. Trudeau and the Liberals can put an end to this if they have the testicular fortitude to do so. But then again, that would suggest that Trudeau actually had a pair. We know who the people are who are causing this unrest. It is the pro-terror, pro-hate protesters that we see every weekend and sometimes even during the week in every major city in Canada. It's almost like somebody is giving them $224 a day in untaxed living expenses so they can live like kings and not work. We should be busting up these protests, rounding up these haters, and sending them directly to Syria on a military flight. And like I said in a previous video, give them a parachute, open the door, tell them never to come back, and kick them out. I would even include people who defecate in public in those flights as well. But that's just my opinion. I'd love to know what you have to say. Put your comments down below. And while you're at it, please like this video, share with your friends and on social media. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Oh, and I do have another channel, Cavalryman USA, where I talk about US politics. There's a link in the description for that. I invite you to go over there and check it out. Finally, there is still a link in the description to a petition I started several months ago, urging Mary Simon, the Governor General, to dissolve Parliament and call an early election. If you'd be interested in that, please follow that link and sign that petition. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.